So attack paths can be very short, but they can also be incredibly long, right? So again, hacker performs reconnaissance, they gain initial access, they execute some payload and deploy some sort of persistence module. And again, if I'm speaking too quickly, I got a lot to go through, but please interrupt if anyone has any questions at all about these. They escalate their privileges on that machine. Maybe they access some credentials that are stored on that machine. They look for other systems, right? Maybe they find a cloud system that system has access to. They move laterally to it. And now that system gives them the impact they want, right? Now they have access to that data, and they can disrupt it or exfiltrate it, all right? So some attack paths can be a lot longer. So here's the interesting thing, though. That also is not really a great representation of what an actual true attack path looks like, right? Because that was very linear, left to right, and that's not what attack paths actually look like in the real world. So again, reconnaissance, maybe we gain access, we deploy some sort of persistence module, we escalate privileges, we access credentials, we discover new assets, and that allows us to move laterally to it and compromise it via another method, right? So the key here that I want to highlight is that there's like kind of this ping-ponging effect, right? Where again, it's not just like this simple logical progression where a hacker goes from A to Z, right? There's a lot of stuff that happens, right? There's a big path where they're, checking for multiple vulnerabilities and they're exploiting them and they're kind of figuring it out as they go. And then they ultimately get to impact. So the key here, right, the one big thing that I think everyone is missing is that ultimately none of this really matters, right? If you can stop the chain anywhere along there, you can win as the defender, right? So all of these things can happen, right? They're not good. I'm not saying, hey, great, a hacker's in our network and they're moving around. But as long as you can stop them before they actually get to impact, that's how defenders win, right? This is what's missing. And so still, that diagram that I gave you is still missing some interesting elements that actually happen during an attack path, right? Which is, an attacker doesn't, again, just magically know what's going to work every time. They're checking for things and they're discovering things. So again, they might say, okay, they've obtained credentials, right? They've moved this far, and they're going to start to discover assets. They say, okay, I'm looking for whether it's certain types of vulnerabilities or certain types of hosts, whatever it is, right? And some of those lead them to nowhere, right? But they just were probing, looking for stuff. Then they find something that they can use, and they're back to, okay, I compromised another host, and now I'm moving laterally again. And again, that lateral movement is not just hey, it works every time, and I know exactly what I'm doing, right? They're in this new maze. So they say, oh, I tried moving laterally here. It worked, but it ultimately didn't give me access to anything new. I tried moving laterally here, and it failed, right? Maybe I didn't have actual proper authentication or access. Then finally, after multiple attempts, they find a host that does give them what they want, and then they progress from there. And ultimately, again, that process repeats where they're checking for new things and trying new things. This is a much more accurate representation of an actual attack path, right? With those things that the hacker's trying and just kind of figuring out as they go along, which ultimately leads to impact. So the key here as well, as a defender, these things can happen in your environment. We're trying to stop this, just impact, okay? All of these ones that ultimately didn't get the attack or anything, those are phenomenal opportunities as defenders for you to detect there's malicious activity in your environment and respond and ultimately kill the chain.